Welcome to Mad Props. I am your host, Chris Schnabel, and today we are joined by the Vice President of Athletics at St. John's University, Eddie Kull, will be joining us to talk about St. John's rise back to basketball fame, how the basketball program is trying to extend to other sports, and a lot more in college basketball and athletics. So definitely join us for this episode. Before we get started, this episode is brought to you by Audible.com. Listen, I'm someone that lives pretty busy life between work, podcasting, and my, athletic activities and other things I'm doing. It's tough to sit down with a really good book. But with Audible.com, you do not have to worry about all that. You can be on the go and listen to your favorite books right from your fingertips, right from your phone. Go to audibletrial.com/Schnabel Studios today to get a 30-day free trial of Audible.com. I have it right now. I have been reading a marketing book. I'm starting into a biography right now on Lauren Michaels. You're not going to want to miss out on this. audibletrial.com/Schnabel Studios. Get your 30-day free trial of Audible today. This podcast is also brought to you by Schnabel Studios. Whether you're looking for comics and animation with Sketching Up, interviews with Mad Props, or a whole lot more, Schnabel Studios is your one-stop destination for everything entertainment. We have documentaries, we have short films, we have podcasts, we have player highlights, player mic'd ups, a lot of different things on the Schnabel Studios page. Go to youtube.com/@Schnabel Studios today to check out all the things that are Schnabel Studios, or the schnabelstudios.com today to check out more. Schnabel Studios is an all-inclusive entertainment place that you can also hire to get your entertainment filmed as well, whether it's the big sporting event, big concert, or more. Schnabel Studios is the place to go. schnabelstudios.com or youtube.com/Schnabel Studios. Make sure you follow this podcast at Mad Props Pod on Instagram or Facebook. You can also follow Schnabel Studios on Instagram, Facebook, X/Twitter, or TikTok to get all the clips and updates that you could ever wish for. And you can also follow Mad Props on YouTube at Mad Props Pod, newly started page. So go check that out as well. So as people may know, I'm a Gonzaga guy. I got my master's from Gonzaga. I worked for Gonzaga for 2 years during Jalen Suggs' year and during the Chet Holmgren year, 2 Jared Timmy years, however you want to put it. The 1 national championship year, the 2 UCLA years, however you want to put it, especially the 1 Jalen Suggs UCLA year. Big Gonzaga guy. I always enjoyed college basketball. My whole life. I used to follow Florida pretty heavily. And then I kind of lost touch with not only college football, but college basketball and all the other sports. And I didn't really pay attention until I went back to Gonzaga, until I went to Gonzaga. And now I follow them pretty religiously. Actually, to get a little peek inside the curtain, this part of the episode is being filmed during the WCC tournament final against St. Mary's, and Gonzaga is currently up 33-31. So maybe by the end of the episode, we'll know the score. Definitely by the time you guys are listening, you'll know if I'm a happy camper or a sad camper, because Gonzaga is very much on the fringe this year, and I don't want to see them outside the bubble. So I'm hoping that they can turn things around and win this game, get the automatic bid, and not have to worry about Selection Sunday whatsoever. But they are currently up by 2 at half against St. Mary's, who's an unbelievably good team. I think they're 28-4 this year. It's funny that they moved now to the Pac-12, which if you want to hear more about the move to the Pac-12, I highly recommend checking out the Chris Standiford episode that premiered about 2 months ago. He's the athletic director of Gonzaga. We talked a lot about the move to the Pac-12. Why now? Where do you gain from this? Because all the teams left and stuff like that. And there was some good insight, and it was really a good episode if you really want to deep dive into NIL and Gonzaga's behind the scenes of athletics. He was fairly open with everything. But it's funny because this is the strongest the WCC has ever been, with St. Mary's and San Francisco both being legitimate contenders every year, along with Gonzaga, which it wasn't like that. When they were talking about going to the Big 12 for years, and the Big 12 is or the Pac-12, sorry, I keep saying the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 was like, you don't have football, we don't want you. It made sense because they had USC, UCLA, Stanford. They had legit schools there. Now it's just you're moving to a conference that's got a little bit bigger of schools, right? I think Boise's going to be in it, Wyoming, Washington State will be there, and Oregon State will be moving over because they're currently in the Pac-12, but there will be some teams there, and it makes sense. But Now's a weird time to leave the WCC because it's actually legitimately not a bad small conference. They have some teams that are legit. I think they had 3 teams in the tournament last year: St. Mary's, San Francisco, and Gonzaga, all mid-tournaments either last year or 2 years ago. So it's a weird time to leave, but they are leaving for the Pac-12, and they are currently winning in the WCC tournament final. Hopefully they can pull that one out for my own sake because I want them to win. But that's not really what we're talking about today. Today we have Eddie Kull coming on. I met Eddie at the Aaron Judge mic'd up that you can find on the Schnabel Studios page right now. He was the athletic director for Fordham at the time. He actually gave Aaron Judge a jersey. I was there recording. Obviously, I followed Aaron Judge around for hours, and I was there for that. I got it on film. I sent it to him, and we kind of became connected from that point. And then after that, we stayed connected. Now that St. John's is doing really well, and we both were able to come around and find the time, we thought this was the perfect time for him to come on, seeing as the Big East tournament starts today. So the day you're listening, if you listen to this when it comes out, the day this comes out, I should say, is the day the Big East tournament starts. So the Johnnies will be fighting to try to get into the tournament as a high seed. They're going to get in either way. But if they win the Big East tournament, they could be looking at a 2 or even possibly a 1 seed, which would be phenomenal, seeing as they've had a long time kind of in the shadow when the Big East dissolved, and even a little bit before that. They really haven't been this good since the 90s and earlier, but when the Big East was a powerhouse conference, and not only basketball, but also football and a lot of other sports. So it's good to see the Johnnies doing well again. Eddie has a lot of really good stuff to say about it, but I'm not really going to talk more about that. How about we just get right into the interview? Let's roll the credits. Let's start the show. This is Mad Props. Eddie Kull, Vice President of Athletics at St. John's. How are you? Thank you for joining. I really appreciate you being here. Good to see you again.
Chris, good to be with you again. Pleasure to see you guys. Well, it's been, last summer?
Summer in the Bronx. One of the things that I would say top 5 maybe top 1 bucket list thing I've ever done in my life, being like basically the personal videographer for Aaron Judge for 6 hours. That's a pretty cool opportunity to have, and I got to meet you there, and it was at the time, your school up there in Fordham, and it was a really I don't know how much you got to do that day. I know you got to meet him. We had the whole interaction. I don't know how much you got to do with him that day, but it was a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, we were lucky the last 2 years have Aaron Judge's summer baseball camp and his foundation camp. That really does a great thing in terms of helping kids in need and the opportunity for them to not only learn baseball, but to meet Aaron Judge. And I think his foundation gives them a bunch of gifts and wonderful opportunities. And Fordham in the Bronx got the host out last year. So I got to make sure I bring that to Queens here this summer. But Aaron is not only a major superstar and a large presence of a human being, he's a tremendous, huge heart and great foundation, great philanthropic work. And Aaron Judge is one of the good guys. I know my two boys are big fans of his, and as most kids should be. It's great to see good role models.
Yeah, when people find out that I did that work, whether it is the photo behind me or whatever it might be, maybe I just talk about it because I talk about it a lot. Like I said, one of the better opportunities I ever had. Their first question is always like, "Is he like a good dude?" Because sometimes like, you don't meet your heroes type thing, and I'm like, he's like one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. He's like actually a really, really solid guy.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that looks like obviously a giant. He's got to be 6'7", 6'8", probably 280 pounds. But it seems like definitely a teddy bear in terms of quality of human being and personality, and really enjoys being around the kids. And I think had his wife there and his mom there, extremely family oriented and close. So nice to see him in a different light.
And that was at Fordham. Now you're at a completely different school. So take us a little bit through that journey of going from Fordham to St. You spent over 7 years at Fordham. Now you're at St. John's, where you graduated from. So tell us about that journey in between.
Yeah. So since October 7th, I've been the vice president athletic director here at St. John's. So it's been a busy 120 days, I like to say, on the job. And see, it's like really coming home for me. So Chris, I'm born and raised in Queens, Middle Village, Queens. This is home for me. St. John's is an alma mater. I grew up as a kid rooting for St. John's. Well, that was not only basketball, but baseball. I was a baseball player. Went to high school right, really not too far away, a couple miles away, right over the Grand Central Parkway at Archbishop Malloy, and played for legendary high school coach Jack Curran there, and he also was a St. John's man. I played baseball at Sternberg University. Lucky enough to get a scholarship there. The athletic director there was another St. John's man, and he got me a grad assistantship at St. John's probably over 20 years ago. I was a GA at St. John's, worked here 2 other times. So this is actually me coming back for a 3rd time, and feels very comfortable, very, very lucky and blessed. And not only the ability to come home, but a mission and a place that I believe in, a place that I personally love. And I'm very lucky to mix business and pleasure. And I've always told folks, you got to be careful doing that, but it feels so great. And I jump out of bed every morning, and I'm excited and lucky to be working back at my alma mater here in Queens.
And I'm not saying anything with Fordham on this, but when you get that call, is it like an immediately yes, like hard to even think about?
Yeah, no, good question. Listen, I'm so proud of the time at Fordham, and I'm so proud of the work done at Fordham and the great people I got to work there with, and the great team I got to build there over, whatever 4.5, 5 years of Fordham. It's a place where everybody always say, like, they're not serious about athletics. They're not really supportive of athletics. You can't win there in terms of playing basketball, and it's not a place in terms of an athletic program, and it's kind of a really smaller side or lower level mid-major in terms of dollars and investment. And I love the place, a beautiful campus, great academic institution, tremendous alumni base that has a lot of success, a lot of wealth, a lot of generosity. And we had some really good moments there, a bunch of championships, and basketball team 2 years ago won 25 games, had its best season in 50 years, going back to Digger Phelps in 1971. So I'm really proud of those moments and those opportunities and the great people. It's almost like when people count you out or really think it can't be done or it's impossible to do something, the more excited, the more pumped you get for that challenge. I know you know the feeling, Chris, and that's kind of what Fordham was for me. So when St. John's called, yeah, it was definitely personal. It was definitely unfinished business, a place that I hold near and dear to my heart. But Fordham, all those years of building it and getting those teams to a level we wanted to and getting basketball to the level we wanted to, it was not easy. You kind of had so much sweat, blood, and tears of equity in there, and so many people that were shareholders, investors, and we raised a lot of money and we got a lot of things going and done there. So it's hard to really pivot and disconnect emotionally and mentally to a new job, but it was one of those jobs that was already had my heart and already had a lot of my family upbringing. I didn't have to move my family, and it's actually even a better commute than I had going to the Bronx and going over the bridge. So very, very lucky, and a lot of similarities from a standpoint of the mission, helping those in need. St. John's and the Vincentian mission are incredible. A lot of first-generation college graduates. That's me. A lot of kids from the local city in the tri-state that didn't grow up with a lot of means like myself, and need an opportunity, needed help and support. And St. John's does an amazing job of doing that. We really represent what New York City is all about. We really represent the grit and toughness of New York City, and I love that, from its blue collar way about it to its second most diverse campus in the country behind UCLA. It really is home. It represents Queens, and it's a beautiful place for me. Very, very lucky.
Yeah, I want to get back to St. John's in a second, but it's funny that you say like the sports are not as known at Fordham, because I maybe not be athletes, but like Vince Scully, Mike Breen, Michael Caine, like you think of sports immediately because these sports announcers all came from this one campus. So it must have helped when you were building, knowing that there was a sport-related thing that came out of this campus that you could promote. But yeah, building a small school up had to have been tough.
Yeah, I love you saying that. And obviously from especially your world and the media side, whether that be sports media or business media or general media, such a alumni network at Fordham in terms of a presence. And they have WFUV is the largest public radio station in the country, Chris. So there's a long history of students broadcasting the games on the public radio station, and it really being a laboratory being a canvas for them to grow and develop and get their skill sets. So everything from Michael Kay to Vin Scully to Mike Breen to Bob Papa. There's so many Spiro Dietz. There's so many great personalities that came through there. And honestly, while building it, while trying to engage all the alumni and rally support and shareholders and investors, spent a lot of time with that group because, to your exact point, they not only understood what Fordham was about and how special of a place it was to them, they knew what sports meant from a professional side and from the media standpoint and the PR side of it on what the place could be and what the potential was. So rallying them was great. They were really, really helpful in a lot of process, especially during that magical basketball season. And, they have a nice little fraternity and sorority there in terms of communications and media department. And, it's something we even talked about here at St. John's is looking at radio station opportunities, looking at choices of talent. How do you truly select people that represent your DNA, represent your institution and your brand that way, and making sure that they publicize. And that's where I think even like the Subway alum comment earlier for St. John's, so many folks kind of inherently adopt St. John's as their, if not their primary alma mater, their secondary one based on living in this wonderful city.
Yeah, and I listen to a lot of New York sports radio. I live in Dallas now, originally from New York as well. So I listen to a lot. And man, St. John's has taken over. You hear it on the radio now. You see it on TV. You see it everywhere. St. John's. I mean, highest ranking in 30 years or something like that. I mean, it's incredible how the college basketball team is taking over the city, because taking over New York City as a team is very tough, especially in sports like basketball and baseball, because there's two pretty prominent teams that are already implanted there. So it's a pretty big accomplishment to be talked about this much as a college basketball team even.
Yeah, it's been a heck of a season thus far, and today we were selected number 6 in the country. And you're right, it's been, between 30 and 40 years, and a lot of these statistics based on ranking, which goes I think to 91, 92. We won the regular season Big East championship on Saturday at Madison Square Garden, and that's the first time we've outright won the regular season title since 1984-85, which that St. John's team went to the Final Four under Lou Carnesecca and Chris Mullen and Walter Berry. And it's been a lot of magic this season, and so much credit is due to Coach Pitino, Rick Pitino, the Hall of Fame coach of ours, and his career speaks for itself. His status as one of the greatest of all time speaks for itself, and his place on Mount Rushmore, and what he's done here, not only just in terms of developing talent and recruiting student athletes, especially in this challenging NIL and portal world, but he's built a culture and environment that really embraces his style, his attitude, his approach, and Rick is Rick's a native New Yorker. Coach is a native New Yorker. He grew up here. He's been around the world, the highest of levels, whether that's the New York Knicks, Boston Celtics. He's at Louisville, Kentucky. He's familiar with the Big East and its history, going back to Providence and his Final Four there with Billy Donovan and 87. So he gets it, and I think he's so motivated. He's so focused on how to build a team, build a culture, and get players to buy in, Chris. And what's the beauty about New York City, to your point of getting everybody excited, is he understands the type of attitude and professionalism that the city respects. And it's almost like the Pat Riley Knick teams in the 90s, Chris. Like, our teams play tremendous defense. I think we're ranked second in the country in defensive statistics. Hard, tough, gritty, hard-nosed, good teammates. We really represent the blue-collar toughness of New York City. And I think, New Yorkers are tough on you, right? When you're not doing well, you're not playing well, you're not performing well. But they also know how to love you and respect you when things are going great, and you're doing it the right way, and they're buying into your approach and attitude. And that's the love affair with Rick Pitino. That's the love affair with this team right now in New York City. And I think that's truly the DNA and identity of St. John's University that I was speaking about earlier, in terms of our Vincentian mission of first-generation college graduates who have to do things a little differently. And Coach has, the team wear T-shirts, and it's, talks a lot about being humble, being determined, and really making sure that you remember where you came from. And I think that's really why the synergy has and the city has caught on fire around this team right now.
Yeah, St. John's, that does really give that family vibe. I went to an Orlando Magic game, and we're talking maybe 15 years ago. Okay. Mo
Yeah.
Harkless was on the team, and we were standing outside the gate, and players were coming out. We were getting autographs and whatever, whatever. And then Mo Harkless was pulling out, and he was just trying to leave. And this little kid, about, I would say 3 rows back, had a St. John's jersey. And he stopped his car, got out to sign that jersey, and then gave the kid his shoes, all because of St. John's. Not even because he just wanted an autograph from Mo Harkless, because he had a St. John's jersey that he wanted him to sign, which I thought you could just see the family from that right there. Like, he won't go for anybody else, but he'll go for St. John's because he loves that school.
Yeah, I love that. And Mo is a young man that I remember one of my second tour of duty here at St. John's, probably with Coach Lavid's group. And I remember Mo, we used to play Duke on an annual basis back then. And I think Mo had 30 at Cameron against Duke. And we're like, oh, this guy's going to get drafted. He just kind of elevated his game to the next level. And he was a Queens kid, knew the borough well, knew the city well, and just really understood the value of St. John's and what it's all about. And I think, that's the excitement here with Coach Pitino, is you're kind of getting everybody engaged from the good old days to the future generation, where my 12-year-old is bringing T-shirts to school and wearing a St. John's gear to school. And I know a lot of kids are like, learning about St. John's for the first time, and the power and the reach and the contagiousness of what a season like this does and what a coach like Coach Pitino could represent. It's so fun to see within the city. We know there's so many professional teams here. It is a professional sports city, but St. John's, when it's going great like this, it's next level in terms of really the purity and the amateurism, even though I know we've lost that with some of the NIL world of our student athletes. There's a really a beauty to the love of college sports that, unfortunately, the NBA has lost in terms of load management, not playing defense, and maybe taking off some days and different strategy. That's where college sports, college athletics, just really has and can capture an audience.
So getting this high ranking and being back in a spot that they haven't been in a long time, and even since the Big East had its all gone back, all that stuff, how do you plan to keep this kind of success going in the future with the NIL? Like, players leaving and coming is something that's becoming way more common with all teams. And in college basketball, you have guys that'll just come and then go to the NBA. So there is a lot of turnover. How do you keep the success of this team year after year after this year?
I think that's really the real effort and strategy in terms of how we move forward is trying to make this as sustainable as possible. And as much as everybody's like, well, what do you lose sleep over these days? It's really making sure that we are not only maximizing the opportunity in the moment in front of us and the exciting times in front of us as we enter into not only a Big East tournament, but an NCAA March Madness tournament, is how do we make this sustainable? How do we fully leverage, the greatest college coach of all time, but also make sure that when he's not here, that the train is continuing to go in the right direction, and we are really moving it all full steam ahead and rowing together as an organization. So that's a lot of the focus there. So we've done a lot in terms of how do we look at things, everything from revenue generation to the ability to pivot here in terms of house revenue. And I think you've seen a lot of success from St. John's in terms of NIL. We've been very, very lucky and blessed that alumni and donors have supported NIL, and companies have gotten behind that, specifically with men's basketball, but also with a bunch of our sports. And I think the future here is we have to be committed to the new world of revenue share and or NIL, however you want to phrase it. And I think the opportunity, Chris, is compared to the Power Four, who has a split with FBS football. We believe in the Big East and our Big East members and within the conference that it'll be a better opportunity for us non-football schools to be able to focus in college basketball and give us an advantage in the sport of college basketball. So my commitment here at St. John's, our commitment here at St. John's, is making sure that we are at the top of either the NIL numbers or the house revenue numbers, and moving forward, making sure that we're giving Coach Pitino and our program the best advantage to go out there, whether it be in the portal or recruiting, that we have the most NIL and house revenue dollars possible to make, obviously an advantage for us, and not only locally here, but nationally in college basketball. And I think that's important as our primary, is not only just, there's no reason to complain about NIL or struggle with house revenue. Just jump all in and understand it. And make sure that we are strategizing to be at the top in this country in terms of investment that way.
And how do you use the NIL to, when you're building your basketball team, how do you use that to build other programs as well? Like, do you kind of try to make deals of, hey, help basketball, but also help these sports as well? Or do you want to use the success of basketball to try to draw others in, like you see other smaller basketball schools do, where they have these national powerhouses that bring other athletes to these other sports?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both, where I think, showing the return on investment now in terms of what NIL can successfully look like, what hopefully house revenue share will look like, and our ability to make sure that we are not only having a successful program on and off the playing surface, or for this example, in terms of hoops on the court, but showing that when done wisely, you almost are now promoting that alumni and donors are shared owners in the program, are shared partners with coach in terms of building out a program. And I think that almost is not only hopefully will continue to increase for men's and women's hoops, but also will show the other Olympic sports that this could help their coaches and help their recruiting and help maybe prevent some student athletes from entering the portal and trying to leave for another institution. So I think it's contagious that way, Chris, that we could obviously show and model what success looks like. And then I also think in terms of revenue generation, whether that be obviously simple things like ticket sales or sponsorship sales, or obviously viewership and impressions, whether it be obviously media purposes, how do we make sure that we are trying to leverage every last dollar, whether that's licensing, merchandise, sponsorships, collectibles, every little different thing that we can do to help bring in dollars. That's going to help the entire athletics department. That's going to help improve our facilities. That's going to help improve some of our staff needs. But trying to make sure that we are looking at it for the long term is key on that, because it's got to make sure that we're building that from a multiple year standpoint.
When you talk about the licensing and stuff like that, have you seen a national brand expansion since this, or have you always had a national brand kind of with St. John's that you've been able to sell, or are you keeping it very local to New York to these like local businesses and stuff like that?
It's a great question. It's something we're obviously open to and trying to promote any way we can. And I think, I think a lot of the media attention, a lot of the media following Coach Pitino and the program has led to a lot of national coverage, which is great. Definitely seeing some growth there on licensing, whether that's different brands like Averix, like Starter, some of the different things we're trying to do in terms of, of promotion. And I think we even had some relationships with Darren Ravel in the collectible merchandise category, doing some things with Brandon Steiner in terms of autograph signings and pieces, looking at things from auctions to trading cards to tickets. I think we're trying to be as open-minded, as creative as possible on any kind of apparel opportunities. I think the answer is, I think we have the ability to be a national brand that way, and hopefully that will continue to grow. But really, I think a lot of the focus has at least been, and we're lucky that we're based out of New York City from a local standpoint. So we have a beautiful marketplace. We have a lot of retail and brand companies that are located in Manhattan. How do we continue to leverage that any way possible?
Yeah, and it'll help with building a national brand as well, being in New York City. It's
Yeah.
just such a worldwide known place. And St. John's had a big name before the Big East kind of crumbled. And that's when you saw a lot of the St. John's, Seton Halls, those New York City schools that they kind of took a back seat as the UConns and the Syracuses left the conference. And it's good to see these ones building back up. I like to see these the Power 4 conference was Power 5 conference is so tough, especially with how football basically rules the whole thing. It's good to see the schools that were very good, got pushed to the side, rising back up, because it's just, to me, I hate to see. I love college basketball. I love college baseball as well. And these conferences just got all messed up because of one sport in particular.
Yeah, I think, in the mid 80s or early 80s through the 90s, Big East obviously was king in terms
Powerhouse.
of hoops. Yeah, and obviously had a combination of both, powerhouse in terms of national college basketball, and of course had some football as well. And then of course the football realignment kind of changed things there. And I think the league and our commissioner have done a great job kind of pivoting through that and navigating through that. Of course, the return of UConn has been tremendous in terms of the value proposition of college
Especially
basketball.
this year, right?
Yeah, men and women's basketball, right? Not just even the men's side. So I think it's huge. I think as we navigate the future, how do we continue to advance and grow in a strategic way, navigate what the NCAA house settlement and potential realignment means. And, I think you've seen it. College football just gets the dollars in terms of a lot of these media decisions or these media buys. And that's caused the realignment of conferences kind of following or chasing those dollars. So hard to argue the finances of it. But I think the Big East has done a good job of kind of accepting and owning who they are, and the priority being basketball. How do we creatively continue to advance and try to find alternate opportunities and revenue streams? Because at the end of the day, it's going to come down to dollars and cents on why schools are leaving or relocating. But I think the Big East brand is really strong, Chris. I think it is a national brand. I think a lot of folks in the 80s were watching college basketball when it really was the only nationally televised conference. Obviously, that has advanced a lot over the last 40 or so. But just continue to look at the future. And I think even in your world, you probably know as much or more than I do in terms of streaming sites and kind of where this is all going to trend and go. I think no one really knows. But it's still the most important live content consumption taking place in America is sports. And I don't see that changing. I think that's where the advertising dollars are coming, and that's where the media outlets are investing so much in college sports.
That's why still, YouTube TV and cable still really exists. A lot of people have it just to watch sports. And I got my master's at Gonzaga, spent 2 years there. I know all about the big fish in the small pond and the realignments and everything that went on. Gonzaga for years was in a back and forth with the Pac-12, trying to get into the Pac-12 as a basketball school, but they wouldn't let them in because they didn't have football.
Yes.
And then now they let them in because they only have 2 schools. So they need more schools in the Pac-12.
And let's be honest, Gonzaga from a basketball standpoint, does it even need them now, right? In terms of what it's built as a brand and what it's built as a national scheduling and their ability to be on national TV as much as they like. And Gonzaga has always been the model that many of the smaller private Catholic schools have looked at in terms of, hey, how do we become them and how do we grow to be them? And it's remarkable what's been done out there in terms of Spokane.
Yeah, they really just built in it as basketball has changed and college basketball has changed. They've also changed the way they build their program and put their program together. And even now with NIL, they're trying to change how they're putting the program together and stuff like that. But it is a weird time to switch over, especially with the WCC, which is what they're currently in, actually being pretty good now with 3 legitimate schools every year that make the tournament. So it's an odd change, but at least they're in the Pac-12 now. Maybe they'll make it a big conference again. But I get what you're saying about smaller conference, outside of football conferences, basically. So I grilled you with a bunch of the hard questions. Now I just got to say.
No worries.
All right. You walk into the arena on the St. John's game. What is it like? What is that feeling? How does it feel walking in there for someone that doesn't get to do it?
Yeah. So I think, Madison Square Garden is a special place. And I assume you've been there, Chris. I hope I have. Yes. I hope a lot of people have. And it really, it's not like any other sports arena in the world. Obviously, it's the world's most famous arena for a reason. I think its popularity, even when like the Knicks or the Rangers have been struggling, it's almost like a Broadway show in terms of its platform in New York City. And I think I say that because people just want to experience it, and it's easy to get to in terms of mass transit. And it's kind of a must-stop, a must-visit destination when visiting Manhattan. So for when we go in there, we've had 4 consecutive sellouts here at St. John's at MSG. And to go in there and see that place rocking with a bunch of fans and wearing their red and all fired up to see their team play and win, it's like no other place in the world in terms of a hostile environment, of a healthy, energetic, enthusiastic fan base. It has this natural energy in there. And, next week we'll start the Big East tournament, which has been there, since the early, literally like 45 years ago in terms of the early 80s. And it's such a special tradition and history for college basketball. And it goes back, a very, very long time in terms of having events there and what it means to New York City. And it just provides this enthusiasm and energy that is, it's exhilarating. It really is. So I came home Saturday night after, we won the regular season title at MSG, and they did a great confetti and celebration on the court. And, the adrenaline just continues to pump through you. Coach Pitino, who's coached the Knicks, who's obviously coached in the Big East tournament or coached college teams at Madison Square Garden, his comments of late in terms of the media are so almost centered around the feeling of what it's like to sell out Madison Square Garden, to see all of your alumni there, to see the student body in the end zones, Chris, right? To have 3,000 students just excited to be together and cheering. And it's really a remarkable feeling. It's an addiction that you never want to get over. And it's something that I wish there was an easy formula to say you could build this out and do it. But I think you understand and know that there's a lot that goes into it, and that's the special talents and skills of Coach Pitino in terms of building a team, building a culture, but also knowing what a fan base is looking for and expecting from performance, attitude, and approach of a team. And I think that's just been a beautiful identity for our university in terms of exposing who we are.
I mean, if you think you're bringing in a recruit, right, on a visit, and you got Rick Pitino on the sideline, and you got a full Madison Square Garden for like a regular season game in college, if you're a player, it's got to be tough to turn down if you walk into that environment. Like, I could be playing in front of a packed crowd at Madison Square Garden with a legendary coach every night, like every home game.
I've always said, my on and off of working at St. John's the last 20 years and in and out in terms of many Big East tournaments and many college basketball games at the Garden. I've always said that it's such a magical place and it's such an incredible experience that sometimes I used to always think this is actually a challenging place for St. John's University because every opponent is now fired up no matter what.
Yeah.
The adrenaline is flowing, the crowd's pumping. So you're automatically adding this to the size of the target that's on your back because of wanting to play the Garden. It was almost like when Jordan used to come into the Garden to play the Knicks, right? Like, oh, he always has his best game at the Garden. Well, are you really surprised at that? Based on, it's the greatest stage in the world. It's the greatest, motivation in the world. Not that, Michael Jordan needed much more motivation. So I always say, like, that's like, is that a good thing or bad thing for us in terms of home crowd? But I think that's the importance that the fans play. That's the importance that they really let you know who they're rooting for. They appreciate good effort and good production, and they let you know when you're not doing well too. But they could truly drive and inspire an individual, and that's the incredible combination of Manhattan, New York City, and Madison Square Garden. And we're lucky that St. John's University, it's their home, and our fan base is comfortable being there. And it really is a perfect setup right now with, again, the greatest college basketball coach on the planet.
Eddie Kull, good luck to St. John's. Good luck in the Big East tournament, and good luck in the big tournament as you guys go into there.
Chris, I appreciate it. Great catching up with you again. I hope to see you on this coast soon, and hopefully we get to catch up. And I know you're rooting for the Johnnies now.
It's a little. I'll root from any time, and Gonzaga's not in it.
The Zags aren't involved. Yes,
anytime Zags aren't in it.
The Zags got us in Denver. I'm trying to think what year it was with Coach Lavin. It might have been 2011 or 12. We had a tough draw out there in Denver, and we lost to the Zags out there, unfortunately.
Well, if they're going to be seeded higher than the Zags this year, I'll tell you that. Zags are looking at like a 9 seed this year. It looks like
that's a team you never want to see in the tournament. You know that.
I'm telling you right now, whoever team I was, I would not want to be going as the higher seed going against a 9 seed Gonzaga. Like that's a tough pull if you got that.
You ain't kidding. But
yeah, no.
Appreciate your time, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you, Eddie, so much for joining us. Thank you all for being here. Remember, you can follow Schnabel Studios at the Schnabel Studios YouTube page, or you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X/Twitter, or TikTok to see all the clips and updates that you want. You can also follow this podcast at Mad Props Pod on Instagram and Facebook. You can also subscribe to the Mad Props channel on YouTube at Mad Props, or subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. It really helps us out when you do that and gives us, more sponsors in the future, hopefully. Speaking of sponsors, audibletrial.com/Schnabel Studios. Go there today and get your 30-day free trial of Audible. Audible is a really good way to stay connected with your favorite books. Even if you don't have the time to sit down and read them, you can just throw in some earbuds and do what you have to do on the side while you're listening to a good book. I've gone out on shoots while listening to books, so it's a really good tool to have. Have it right at your fingertips. audibletrial.com/Schnabel Studios. Get your 30-day free trial today. And make sure you check out schnabelstudios.com to check out everything Schnabel Studios related, whether it's film related or podcast related. Make sure you check out the Johnnies in the Big East tournament. Hopefully you can see them go far in the tournament. Hopefully not as far as my Gonzaga Bulldogs. We still don't know what the final is there, but you guys will know the final by the time you hear this, hopefully. If not, then just go check, because the final will be here unless it goes to 700 overtimes. So that's the only way that's not going to happen. So definitely go check that out. Make sure you check out the Johnnies, the real the Johnnies, as they go on their quest for a national championship. Hope to see you next time. We have Jackson Prince joining us, former UT basketball player turned podcaster. It was a very good in-person interview. I can't wait for that one to come out as well. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, whether you're listening or watching, so you can see when that comes out. Thank you guys so much for being here. We hope to see you next time. I am Chris Schnabel, and this has been Mad Props.